Hello, welcome to the ADM video. ADM stands for ATS Design Manager, and it is a application that I worked on from April to August of 2025 at ATS Life Sciences. And this video is going to have two parts. The first part is going to go over the background of the app and what it did, and a second video will go into a little more detail about the development process and how it worked and problems that were faced. So the background of the app is that its purpose was to configure Symphony, which is a automation system developed by ATS that most simply is described as a combination of two technologies, SuperTrack and their proprietary robot gripper. So SuperTrack conveys parts around in a circle, and the grippers bring parts from peripheral feeder systems, and everything gets assembled as it travels around SuperTrack. And I'll put links in the description. There's lots of really cool videos detailing what SuperTrack is and how it works, and what the Symphony system is as well. But the system is modular, so the size of the SuperTrack conveyor in the center can expand, and the number of grippers in each station can be varied, and potentially the power requirements for the motors driving all these grippers and for the conveyor system also need to be configured. So the purpose of this app was so that a salesperson could very easily configure a preliminary design of a Symphony system, quote it, and push it through to engineering, and the mechanical design team could then change it or not, and along the way they are able to, using this tool, automatically generate schematics, and then those schematics get sent to, and also part numbers and tracking information, and they get sent through to the repetitive manufacturing division, which would then create the system before sending it to the custom assembly floor. The summary of the background of the app is that it was meant to configure the Symphony system and support the generation of schematics for manufacturing. So the next step after the background is to talk about where the app development began. And it began at the very beginning with trying to choose a stack. There was already in existence a SQL database and a Visual Basic Excel-based program that was used to interface with the ePlan API to generate electrical schematics, but it was very unreliable, and as new versions of Excel were coming out, it was getting broken. So the idea was to create a web app that could be deployed globally and be much more maintainable using a full stack. And the only condition that was really established was that it was going to use this SQL database, which was also very early developed. And so I'm going to detail the decisions related to choosing the stack in the second video, because I want to keep this one really short and there's a lot of screenshots to share. So along with developing the stack, we had to figure out the API, which led to needing to really understand data structures, because when you're setting up your API, what you're really doing is deciding when you're going to move different data structures. So we had to figure out a lot of them. The database should have been better designed, which would have made defining the data structures much simpler. As we discovered in development, that was not the case. And then meeting UI expectations is, I'm going to talk about the rest of this video. We'll be quickly going through the screenshots, trying to discuss what it did, and not get bogged down in how it worked. There's a lot of cool interactive features. The UI expectations that came from management were very specific and very correct. So it led to a pretty pleasing workflow. Here we are at the project selection screen of the ADM app. I'm limited to screenshots by the non-disclosure agreement. So when I finished my contract, I was uh, able to get some screenshots to show the work I had done. But unfortunately, a lot of the interactive features and just really using it in real time are not available to me through that contract. Nonetheless, here we are with the light mode, and the first thing I want to do is switch over to the dark mode, which also existed. The light mode only existed because that was the ATS standard, and it allowed them to make the app portable to HMIs, which didn't really apply to this app, but we wanted to meet any and all expectations that came up. So here in the dark mode of the project selection, you can see a top level that chooses the location with a drop down. When you begin the application, nothing below the white line appears. You just have that selection. So it's very deliberate and clear. If you've never used it before, it's going to let you know the first thing you need to do is the only thing you can see, which is select your location. Then that brings up the job selection screen, the next row here, and again, nothing below the following white line. In this ribbon, you have a couple of options like should show archived jobs or not. Archived jobs show up with the download icon, which is used for the archive. So when you select the drop down, depending on if this is toggled on or off, you'll either have all the jobs and the ones that are archived will show up, or you'll have just your current jobs. So it keeps the list fresh and easy to navigate. There's a description. This description is flexible. Everything was made to be flexible. So I'll talk about that in the other video that details more how it works. But there's a hierarchy of layouts and flex boxes and containers that make it so that everything can expand and contract. And the concept was to have it be usable on a 15-inch laptop screen, but there's definitely times where if you're configuring a larger Symfony system, I wanted to let a user get the most of an ultra wide monitor because they could get very long, as we'll see later. So finishing up describing the job selection, when you select a job, it opens this job selection tab automatically. So if you've already gotten to this point where you've selected a job and then you've selected a cell, if you go back and change the job, it automatically tabs you over to the job parameters. Continuing from the job selection ribbon, which allows you to archive jobs and create and copy them, when you add or copy, there is a pop-up that comes up and lets you define the preliminary information. Not sure I have screenshots of that. After you've selected the job, a default cell will be selected and it'll open this tab full of information for the cell where you can configure it. The information that is changed is highlighted in blue, and if you want to not push that to the database and commit those changes, you can always hit reset and everything will go back to the way it was. So it was a very forgiving system in that regard. Moving ahead, here we can see the the Symfony configurator. So if I back it up a sec, when you click this green button, you come out to the Symfony configurator. Here we see the white version of the Symfony configurator, which again, no one is really interested in. So here's the black version. In this screen, we can see a couple UI features. There's the model, which is dynamically generated depending on the size. So I coded it such that the system, I believe, has a maximum of 8 modules across, but the code can go up to n. Whatever your number is, you can put it in, and when you run out of screen space, it just becomes a flex box that scrolls. On each end, there's a control and a power module, and each module has a collection of settings. We tried to use as icons as much as possible. So there's the module number, the type of module, its status of manufacturing, production, design. Icons, which these did have tooltips if you scrolled over them. So the lightning bolt was for a power supply for SuperTrack. The RFID network was this other icon. Checkmark was if everything met the configuration checks or there were problems still. and the windmill was a placeholder icon for if it had air, if there was pneumatic pressure supplied to that station. So potentially a better icon was in the works, but that was what was available stock, so we used that for that purpose. Within cell specifications, there were a couple of utilities which would change the direction of the shuttles and the numbering scheme. So you can see we just go M for module 1, 2, all the way around in this order. But you could potentially change that direction. You could also change the position of M1 to be any of the four corners. And you could swap which end the power and control module were on. Let's get this go. So when you wanted to remove modules, you could change the number of modules, but then you would have to push this commit button. When the reason for that is it would run some checks and potentially verify you had permission to do that, because when you remove modules, we have to store them somewhere in case you want them back or not, and we're making sure that we didn't want people accidentally deleting important work. So you can also create modules, which is a lot more user-friendly because they come up as defaults, but you haven't eliminated anybody's work. Here's an example of the smaller system. Here's an example of it much larger. Like I said, it supported an end number. You could put whatever you wanted in, and this algorithm would make it all fit and lay it out for you. So if you select one of these modules, like the grayed out one, for example, it would collapse the model view in the accordion, which you could always bring back if you wanted, but it would automatically collapse it so that you had room to see all these parameters related to your module. So we would have potential order numbers, which never got developed, but you would get to select the types, and similar to before, everything that's been changed is highlighted, and we added some more utilities for if you configure engine 1 like this, but there's obviously, you can see we fetch all the part parameters from the database, so this list is populated from a database, so when different parts become available or discontinued, they get added automatically and the app continues to function the same. So you say you configure your engine 2, but then it turns out someone got the bright idea that we need to change things, as always happens. You can just copy it over or swap them if you want, and it keeps track of everything for you. The other tab that's available, so in this this screen, we see that you can bring the model view down and select another tab, which shows the station labels. So in this screen, you can see the name of the station. It can be updated here, and in real time, it is displayed on the model, which I was very satisfied with. You don't have to save it or commit it or get it re-rendered. It really validated the time I took at the beginning of the job to make sure that the data structures governing everything were maintainable and sensible, because now you can change the same information everywhere in real time if you want, or it's much easier to interlock it somewhere than to go back and try and make it live. So it's well maintained and supported, and I was really satisfied with that outcome. So that actually concludes the screenshots. I hope you're interested in another video that explains it in more detail. I really tried hard to make sure that I made the video short and didn't get sucked into overly elaborate explanations, which I hope you're interested in hearing and I would love to share with you. So thanks for watching this video.